Welcome to the Vision Quest video series, a step-by-step guide to holistic health. My name is Linda McKenzie, and I was a data communications engineer for 14 years. I had my own data communications consulting company, and I designed Fortune 1000 companies. And I've been psychic since I'm 8 years old. And about 2.5 years ago, God asked me to switch, and so I've started a new company called Creative Health and Spirit, and we deal in alternative medicine and awareness. In this film, learn the meanings of the tarot deck, the upright and reverse meanings. Find out about the key symbols, the cups, the coins, the swords, the major arcanum, and the scepters, even the cartouche.
Although tarot cards have been primarily used to determine destiny or fate, many tarot card readers today also provide practical knowledge of events or influences which can be used in everyday life.
Tarot card, as I see it, is basically a card that has symbols on it. These symbols will trigger thoughts from your subconscious or your conscious mind. But a combination of these cards will start to draw up pictures. How it works is that's where the magic's contained. All I know that over the years I've been doing it, the pictures described generally start to talk about the conditions of the client.
There are a lot of different kinds of cards on the market, all are based on the principle that the right hemisphere brain, which I suppose is our psychic brain, our sensitive brain, responds very well to pictures and vibrations. In these cultures, we tend to value our left hemisphere brain, which is logical and analytical and quite a dominating brain. So we speak in logic and we talk and analyse things, but we overlook a huge part of our nature. So the right hemisphere brain, the sensitive psychic brain, which thinks in pictures, can communicate through the cards, any cards, anything that's to do with picture or vibration, as long as they carry a fairly deep vibration with them. And so usage of cards is tapping into that side of the person. The card reader is a translator. The card reader reads the pictures, translates what that person's deeper side is trying to tell the analytical side. So you translate it in words that the person can understand. A good card reader is basically a good translator.
In early cultures, tarot cards were first used to foresee the future. Ancient Chinese, Egyptian, and countless other cultures used anything available to them to determine their futures, including tea leaves, bones, stones, flights of birds, or markings on the earth. Although the origin of tarot cards have been attributed to the ancient Egyptians, the earliest known decks date back to the 14th century in Europe. The first tarot card decks contained between 50 and 80 cards. This standard set contained 40 numbered cards from ace to 10 and 16 court cards depicting kings, queens, knights and pages or princesses. These were all divided into 4 suits, like our modern playing cards. In addition, the tarot also included 22 picture cards called trumps, deriving from the Italian trionfi, a triumphal procession in Roman times. 21 of the trumps are numbered, and one, called le main, or the fool, is unnumbered. The trumps are also called the major arcana, or greater mysteries, while the numbered cards from ace to 10 are called the minor arcana, or lesser mysteries.
Well, tarot cards have got a very interesting history behind them. Their history is spasmodically traced back to quite the far past as well. Basically what occurred as when the more mystical people realised they were going to go through a period of deep oppression, they made a book, a picture book, that described the evolution of human beings. And that picture book is the tarot pack, which was a very wise thing to do. And they gave it to people that were fairly free of being programmed. People like the gypsies, again, and the fairground people that had a natural rebelliousness against being programmed in oppressive cultures. And they did carry that tarot book through quite a long time.
Astrology and tarot go back quite some time. There's always been some form of divination around, whether it be carving on bones and, or casting rocks. The tarot, which seems to have come into fruition probably through about the 14th and 15th century through France, is by and large now our most popular form of divination. It is an easier one to learn because it only requires the understanding of the pictures and symbols that are there and the intuitive skills to be able to bring it to the fore, whereas astrology requires a lot more science behind it, a lot more understanding and learning.
The tarot trumps include Fool, Magician, High Priestess or Female Pope, Empress, Emperor, High Priest or Pope, Lovers, Chariot, Justice, Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Fortitude, Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, Devil, Tower, Stars, Moon, Sun, Judgment, and World. The tarot card pack also includes 4 suits which depict the common instruments used by the people of the Middle Ages.
When reading tarot cards, information comes from 2 sources. One, it comes in through your visual contact with the cards and it triggers off whatever it has you have in your database about cards, which is up in the mind. The other part is the intuitive skills, the feelings that you get from looking at the cards. And there seems to me that there's a connection made between yourself and your client at that level. And it seems that you start to talk about, you're seeing the pictures of their mind, and then you talk about that. And that's the intuitive part of it, the bit that can't be written down. It's the thing that must be acquired over a period of time, depending upon your receptiveness and ability to build it up.
The key symbols of tarot cards include cups, coins, swords, major arcanum, and sceptres. Except for the major arcanum, each symbol goes up by either an ace to 9, king, queen, youth, or horseman.
Usually what happens to people who are learning tarot, they read their own cards. The first thing they notice is when they do it from somewhere else, the pattern entirely changes. So the cards are extremely individualistic for the person. You can read one set of cards and then read for someone else and it's an entirely different pattern. It's...
I guess it could change from day to day. And
oh yes, yes. You can, even reading cards for yourself, you'll notice that there's a particular pattern creeps in. And you can, after a while it'll change, it'll slowly change. You'll have a predominant, say, of swords, or after a while it'll become wands or cups or whatever needs to be going on. Yeah, you can see, you can track your life through it. The wands, which are known as staves or rods, are some of the names they get, have to do with a lot of the fire type situations in your life, the energy and the action, the way we go to work and all these things, the actions that we bring about around ourselves, it can be very much indicated by wands. Pentacles, which are sometimes known as shields or wheels or something, but I refer to them as pentacles, have to do with indicating your materialistic way of life, where your money comes from, what it's doing, what it will do for you. The swords have to do with animosity and struggle and all the deeper emotional side of us. So a lot of trouble can come up through those, or that's where a lot of it's indicated from. And the cups, of course, are the lighter emotions, all the loving emotions, all the fine, we ride into the sunset type situations. So between the 4 of them, they'll cover just about every, well, they'll cover every area of your life. get packs like the Marcel's pack. There's an Egyptian pack of tarot. There's a whole range of them. You can get cards like the cards of the cat woman, and all. There's many. Well, there's quite a few numbers of packs of cards. It's a matter of the person picking the cards that they're comfortable with using, but the basic format and meaning is the same.
They don't really differ too much between.
Well, they'll differ from a little bit, but like I said, the basic format. The most thing that'll differ them is how you want to use the cards. If you want to work with them in a practical way, that's fine. Or if you want to take it into the spiritual world, it will start to read, you'll put other connotations on it. I see what happens when I sit down and I have a reading or a session with a client is that I get them to basically pick out their own cards. And what I feel that's happening is that their subconscious will draw out the cards it needs me to talk to their conscious mind about. I see myself as a way of them talking to themselves, which they would not normally consider. The criteria I usually put on it is that they must be able to understand what I'm talking about. In other words, I don't want to be pulling things out of the blue that they don't understand. That worries me. I tend to want to see things that it's confirmation of directions they're going with possible pitfalls that can be avoided as they go through it. I also like to be able to identify points in time where they can identify what's going on around them.
Tarot card reading is also intricately linked to the ancient art of astrology.
Astrology I bring into tarot at the initial stages of the spread. I use what they call the personal planets, which is the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars and Mercury, to look at the person's character, to understand how it's working, what they do with it, some of the more difficult or flowing aspects that are there. Working on the theory that if there's the same situation presented to two people, they will react differently. It is by looking at through the astrological personal makeup that you can tell which way a person will move under a given situation. This book, which is known as the American Ephemeris for the 20th century, is a chart that it's a book that's constructed with all the planetary positions for this century, from 1900 through to the year 2000. So it's just a matter of looking up the personal birth date and then reading off the astrological position of the planets at that time. If you've got the proper knowledge, you can then start to interpret off that.
And what would that determine?
It would determine what I consider about 70% of that person's character and how they relate to the world and the way they do things. It, by and large, would indicate the conditions that they've been given to move through in their life or what tools they've got to work with. Astrology will indicate the cycles through which we move. The tarot card will indicate your free will and what we do while we're within those cycles.
And I guess, is the book what they really determine when they look at, say, the Sunday paper and you see...
No, it's nothing like that. The sunshine astrology, or what you see in the papers, is for the general masses, and that's fine, and it would certainly seem to work for some people. But if you really want astrology work done, then you must know your time of birth. You must have an astrology chart constructed. Once you've got that, you've got the pattern for your life and what you've got to work with. Your chart shows that the biggest thing that's a difficulty is that the moon is in opposition to Jupiter, so it's difficult for you to expand yourself through your emotions. You may continually doubt. The first part I did when I read for Georgina was to look at her astrological makeup. That's through a time of birth, through a date of birth, and working with the ephemeris, I could start to draw up what her character was, so that I knew that in her case she's a Capricorn lady, and there's a lot of Capricorn about the way she goes about things. Also, moon was in Sagittarius, indicating a desire to spread her emotional wings out. Having understood that, when I did the spreads for Georgina, and the first spread I did is past, present and future, as last year, this year and the year coming up. I use this as a general overview of what the person's life is. So whether their life's difficult or whether it's fortunate, And you can start, by looking at it in a general way, you can start to see the cycle patterns that are happening. Some people continually make the same mistake again and again and again. If you can find these things, you can start to point it out. If they can identify it, then they can basically stop it from happening the next time round. I use that spread like that. Also too, it would show the areas in which they're going to move into and their general thrust in life at this point in time. I like to be able to identify times where things are happening so they can look for those conditions within the time. But I always stress that they must see the conditions in life happening around them. They can't go out and generate them, nor do they have to try and guess it and pretend it's going on. They must actually see it happening in order to work with it. The next spread I did for Georgina was the Celtic cross spread, which looked after questions. She had one question to ask. Although she didn't state what it obviously had a lot to do with the home. And these cards, and this is where the magic of the tarot comes in, these cards came up roundabout indicating that there was thoughts and conditions of the home here. That she desires to improve it or move it or buy another one, but she's basically into improving her home style. So it would indicate that she's initially perhaps somewhat concerned about the family coming along with it and wanting these plans, but in the end she'll get what she wants. That spread I see will come to fruition within 3 months. The last spread that I did, which I use as a type of summary for the other ones, and firstly I like to see things in there that confirm what I've been talking about. I become alarmed if I do not see that. It would indicate that something's been missed or something's wrong. But if generally you'll find that spread will be a general wash-up of all the conditions that are around. And in Georgina's case, I feel that so. It would indicate that there's not too much trouble down the line for her and that she will move through it. She seems to have problems with her family as far as she doubts their ability to move along with her. But I think she'll find as she goes through it all now for the next year that they will support her and be quite happy to go along in the direction she wants to go in. When we looked at this spread, what I did first of all was to look round and try and locate where Georgina was in the cards. I take this spread which runs from January at the start of the year through to December at the end of the year. This row here representing the conditions of last year, this being the year that Georgina is in now, and this being the year coming up, which is 95 through to 96. I find that Georgina should be centred around this card here, the Page of Pentacles. And talking to Georgina would seem to be very much the case. She is thinking of doing and learning more things. I see this as the card of the student. I would see then, looking backwards, I find that the cards that lead up through to here, I would see as in its basic concept as being rather successful. I would feel also too that the conditions being talked about as one of work, that the work was started, re-engaged again, which would indicate last year may have had some difficulties, but it started off quite positively in the new year. I feel that what was happening here is that there was a desire to move the work area out, to expand it and to do things with it, which by and large would have seemed to have been successful. Perhaps here too, that the goals which they established at the start of the year came to fruition by about June this year. Now leaving her in a position where money is available to move forward and perhaps establish new lines for herself, new lines of schooling and of thought. I feel that she is looking for guidance and there is a need here that's there to be had. She's desiring to build up so that by the end of the year she can complete her studies. It would also indicate that the courses that she will go for will be rather short in duration, probably of about 6 months. Having then gone through this part of it and established what will happen both in past this year and forward, I then moved back to establish in my mind and to also help Georgina understand that we know what we're talking about as to the conditions of last year. It would seem that these cards here would indicate that whatever had gone on before had come to a form of successful fruition and she was basically happy, although she felt that she needed on. There was problems starting to creep in. There was decisions needed to be made with her work, decisions need to be made towards the establishment. She had ideas of what she would like to do and to bring it forward. But it seems that if she was not in a position to be able to do it, she didn't seem to want to engage and make the decisions. As we go into next year, we find the conditions there, which indicated by the King of Wands and the Queen of Swords, would indicate that Georgina will probably try to break away from her husband in the work format, that she feels that she's done enough, that she is looking forward to not working as long as what she has been. So it will bring towards an end that small cycle. This splitting is not a splitting between them, but more or less a Georgina establishing and going her own way within the marriage. I find that once she does that, she will start to feel that the conditions round her, which are indicated by the hangman, is that it may take her some time to get established, and there will be a bit of a sacrifice to pay here. The sacrifice, I feel, will be the loss of money through going from part-time to full-time, from full-time to part-time employment. But she will basically get the rewards for the efforts that she's put in. She will re-engage and start to work and start to use more of intuitive skills. I feel that this is the basis of establishing a new line of business that will work quite satisfactorily within a relationship. This spread, Georgina asked a question. When we looked at the question, I started to realise that there was a lot of consideration going on here for Georgina, indicated by the card at the base of it, which is the Hermit, which showing that she's spending a lot of time considering it. This is a decision not to be made lightly. It probably has to do with work, indicated by the Four of Wands, indicating that things are perhaps favourable enough to consider these matters. This card here would indicate the outcome of the question. Very much indicates money being made available for extensions, for moving the home and things like this. It would also show that perhaps that she feels the need to deviate from the path that she's already decided on in times past. So this idea now that's coming about the home is a new idea, and nonetheless is causing a lot of concern or times for consideration. This card here would indicate the conditions around Georgina at this particular point in time would show that she has a lot of power and connection with what she's doing. She has the ability to bring about what she wants. She needs to keep her counsel while she's doing it, but nevertheless, she does have the power and command to make all this happen. The outcome of all this, which has to do with the family home, indicates that the money will be made available and will have much to do with the combination of the family, bringing the family together again. So I would see that there will either be an extension to the home, or that they'll try and buy another home to improve it, or a larger home. These two spreads that were done with the aim of summarising all the spreads that we've done so far. This spread here is an indication of the material world into which Georgina is working, and would start to show that the conditions around her are very, very austere, that there's a lot of decisions being made without feeling, and this could be very much represent her Capricornian way of looking at things. I would find though that through all this she will get what she wants, that she has the support of her husband, she will get the emotional satisfaction, and will be able to draw on a fortune to make things come about so that life is more advantageous to her. Generally, I would feel that the way she is heading is a way of success, at least giving some form of material satisfaction. The other spread is an indication of Georgina's spiritual or emotional world, and would show here a little bit of a different story in the fact that she is rather restricted at this point in time. She is perhaps concentrating too hard on having material assets around her, and in some ways in neglecting her spiritual or emotional side. I feel that it's only a temporary condition, and without much further down the line, she will be able to elevate herself up into a higher level, and will be able to concentrate on these matters.
The Cartouche has been referred to as an oracle of ancient Egyptian magic. Cartouche is based on ancient Egyptian knowledge and is very different from tarot cards. The word Cartouche is of French origin and represents an oval or oblong figure relating to the Egyptian monuments which contain the name of a sovereign or person of rank. As with tarot cards, when a card falls upside down in Cartouche, it implies that the energies indicated by that card are negated. A pack consists of 25 cards, including the first 9, which includes Osiris, Isis, Horus, Bast, Thoth, Hathor, Nephthys, Ptah, and Anubis. These cards represent the archetype cards, while the cards numbered 11 to 14 represent the elements of fire, air, water, and earth. The cards 15 to 25 include Sirius, Lotus, Crook and Flail, Uraeus, Winged Disc, the Twins, Sphinx, Scarab, Pyramid, Ankh, and Buckle of Isis.
The cartouche are made for modern days and modern times. I know they haven't carrying a vast Egyptian mythology with them, but they are specifically made for modern days and modern conditions. And they haven't degenerated. They have still their protective symbols and their ability to apply information that's helpful accurately.
And how are the packs different?
The cartouche have 25 cards. The tarot has 78, I think. So the cartouche tells a shorter story in symbolic focus. The cartouche tells a longer story in more detail. My own personal approach is to enjoy the shorter story in focus than the longer story in detail. And that's how I use it with my clients. Everybody works differently. I respond well to symbolic pictures. I get a feeling about them because I see it as energy, and I see my clients as energy beings in physical bodies. So I can read my client's energy field. I can then look at the card, which is an encompassment of a specific energy. I can see how that card's working with that client, and I can be very accurate. The tarot to me is too madly long drawn out and so on. But to a person who enjoys the tarot, my cards would be too stylized. They wouldn't get any feelings from them.
The ancient Egyptian symbols on the cards were designed to capture the essence of the forces and energies that govern the universe. Many believe that the Egyptians gained their knowledge from these forces from an even earlier advanced race, who in turn were instructed by extraterrestrials from the Sirius star system. Each card is simplified into 3 categories, including spiritual, physiological, and material. Each symbol on the different cards has been designed to activate either of these 3 areas, allowing a better understanding of ourselves or the influences around us.
I see no problem with doing your own cards as long as you're realistic about what you're doing. When students always ask this, and my advice is, yes, you can do your own cards, but don't. The rule is write the question down before you, because when you see the card spread, you might decide to change the question. That's not exactly playing fair. But yes, you can do your own cards. I tend to look at them more in a general pattern rather than giving me intimate detail, because I find that I personally try and read between the lines too much in my own cards. So I look for general patterns and indications of what I should be doing. If there's any rules to be followed, and once again we're getting down to personal things here, when I'm teaching, and I also believe that there's one rule that must be applied to tarot card reading, and that's the rule of being constant. You must be consistent in what you do. It's not fair to ask your subconscious or your conscious minds to follow you if you're erratic in your attack. You need to be able to sit down and have your own particular ritual made out for going through. You need to have it clearly in your own mind what spreads you're going to do, if you're going to change and what the time scales are that you will use. If you follow all these rules and patterns, then you'll find that your tarot card readings will be fairly consistent. I mean, even I do that with what I do. I sit down and I go through a set pattern.
Any card reader of any kind has to realise that they're going to be tapping into the unconscious of their client. And their client's unconscious is quite possibly very disturbed and unhappy, or else why would they be coming? No? So the card reader needs to have, I think, a protective ritual or a protective something before their client comes. And there are a number of ways to do that. With the cartouche, there is a specific card that you meditate on that keeps your own mind and your own system clear, but still enables you to help your client. I don't know what other tarot readers do. There's a method of surrounding yourself with light, which is quite effective. There's a lot of ways of doing it. The ones who don't do that get lost in their client's subconscious. They can give sympathy, but not much else.
Prove to me they work, they say. So I know that they work because I've dealt enough of them and I can see what happens, and that's fine. So my faith in it is, yes, it does work. I spent a lot of time trying to prove these things, but it got to a point where I decided there would be some things I would accept on faith, and this was one of them. I decided that the faith that, yes, tarot cards work and astrology works. There was no point in chasing that field anymore, so believing that, I then carried on. As far as the esoteric side is concerned, I tend not to teach it too much because I feel it's up to the own individual to develop their own style and their own beliefs in the spiritual world. I try to supply a base from which they can work from, a common base that will work well into whatever area they want to go so they can develop their own styles. Well, at this particular point in time, there seems to be a revival and interest in it. I suppose you can, it's there. It'll never be right out front. It's always something people seem to want to hide around in the back and look at it. But I maintain that the tarot can be used to an aid to your decision-making process. I mean, that's all these things will ever become. If you ever allow them to make your decisions for you, or you believe in them as such that it is God and cannot be faulted, then you've got problems. They will only ever be an aid to your decision-making processes.
Cards in general will be existing forever. They'll go into computers, as I Ching has already done, you know. There's no problems. They'll go as long as the human race is going, because they speak to the inner psyche of a human being, and anything that does that stays on forever.
The tarot and cartouche cards are more than just fortune-telling devices, and their symbols, dating back thousands of years, have worthiness in our daily lives. By increasing self-awareness, these cards provide us with an insight into the negative and positive energies which affect our day-to-day lives.